Good afternoon and welcome on this live safari. My name is Brent and I am going to be your guide. I have Wium on camera with me today. We have Tara and Nikki in final control, and we have Bryan and Scott on the other vehicle. It's gone! So I thought there might still be a little bit of left, and I thought the lions might still be around here, but they have moved off. We are going to go look for them shortly. For those of you who might be new, who have missed the last couple of days, the Nkuhuma pride killed a buffalo right in front of us, and they've been feeding on it. This morning one of the Matimba males arrived and took a fair chunk, and when we left all the lions were right on the carcass and feeding as much as they could, and now they're gone, and the vultures have literally come and picked the bones clean. And there's a perfect example. When people say a vulture picks the bones clean, they really do. These were covered with a thin layer of sinew and flesh when we left on the sunrise safari, and they are now completely clean. So guys, I'm sitting alive next to a retired buffalo. There's almost nothing left on this carcass. Apart from being live, we also are interactive, so you can ask me questions about what happened to this buffalo and what's going to happen to it going forward. This is by no means the end of the story for this buffalo. He's still going to provide a lot to other animals. The hyenas will more than likely come in later this evening, and as well as insects. I'm sure that flies have managed to lay some eggs somewhere in here, possibly where the lions couldn't get to, underneath the boss here, and the maggots will clean up what's left there. I'm sure there might be some carrion beetles as well. And I mean, this is absolutely incredible. Oh, it's quite a tough piece, this one. I'm going to show you here quickly how amazingly efficient those vultures have been. And there was, so that sharp beaks managed to take off little bits like that and completely clean the rib cage of this buffalo. They've got as much as they could have out of the vertebra as well. As I said, there is still some meat on this that will be available to animals like hyenas. And if we look, a lot of questions about what would happen to the hide. The lions did eat some of the hide, but there is still quite a fair piece of it, and it's really heavy and very smelly as well. Whoa, lifted that up. So it is starting to rot a little bit underneath. You can still see there is some moisture in there. So the sun will dry this, some of it will rot, and some of it will become really, really hard. But it is fascinating. I mean, it's only been 2 nights and 2 days, and this buffalo is completely gone. The thing that will remain the longest is some of the bigger bones in the skull. And we had quite a lot of questions about what happens to a buffalo skull, or specifically the horn, this keratin, which is hair. It's basically a really thick matted hair. And I talked about a horn moth, which is a species of insect which it will lay its larvae in here, and the larvae actually eat keratin. It's one of the few species in the world. So on my way out on this sunset safari, I went to pick up a buffalo that was retired quite a long time ago. Here we go. And we can have a look. Is this okay here, Wium?
Merci.
So we can have a look. This part of the keratin's already gone. It's been eaten. And if we look off to the tips, we can see these are little horn moth larvae. These are all retired. They're no longer inside. But you can see the little holes that they've bored into there, and they've completely eaten away at the horn, and just leaving the bone inner of the horn, and the keratin outer is nearly gone. This buffalo was killed a couple of years ago, from what I remember, in front of the Djuma waterhole. I will go take this back, put it back with the rest of the bones, because as with all these things, even once the buffalo is very retired, you will find animals will still utilize it for breaking off pieces, for calcium. There were some impala chewing on some of the bones when we arrived there this afternoon, and little insects in that. But I mean, that's in a couple of years what that will look like. And obviously at the moment there's still quite a few ligaments and things that are holding this whole carcass together. So if I try to move the head, for example, inside the spine here, You can see there's still a lot of sinew attached here that's holding that together. And over the next months, this will probably stay intact for up to a month, maybe even a bit longer, before that sinew sort of completely disintegrates and moves apart. And there we go. So by no means is this buffalo carcass at an end. There's still a lot of animals that will utilize this going forward. Very little goes to waste in nature. But now, enough talking about the retired buffalo. Let's go see if we can find out which way those Nkuhumas went. I think they might have gone off for a drink. So we're going to check the roads around here for tracks. I'm hoping they possibly went down to the southwest toward the Twin Dams waterhole. The same place where the Matimba went off this morning. Okay, so isn't that absolutely amazing? We're going to get moving. We're going to check the roads around here, see if there are any tracks close by. Don't worry, before I did get out, I should have mentioned, I did have a careful look to make sure the lions weren't still close by. But we will have a look, see where the tracks lead us. It's possible that they didn't actually move too far and they might be sleeping under a bush somewhere, but hopefully we'll be able to find them. So at that carcass, there was a little bit of a smell, and John Boy was wondering what it was like, especially on the skin, sort of the slight beginning of rot that you would smell on meat, but nothing too bad. So while we try to figure out which way these lions have gone, we're going to cross across to Scotty so he can give you an update about his plans and what he's been up to in the last little while, and we'll see you a little later.
Well, good afternoon everyone, and welcome on board with myself, Scott, my friendly fly on the forehead, and Bryan on camera this afternoon. You've joined at a very good time, and I believe it's after Brent has been explaining as well as standing on the buffalo carcass and what's going to probably happen to that in the coming hours and days. Now, just ahead of us, I've noticed some zebra. And we've literally just come across them. So they're not easy to see now, and they are in quite thick bush. But you should begin to notice a few black and white stripes. And they were initially coming towards us. That's why I did stop the vehicle, in the hope that they would continue, but they have veered off ever so slightly. So let's continue on a little bit closer towards them. It's a wonderful winter's afternoon here, still quite warm, although there is a breeze which is keeping us a little bit cooler. And the plans for Bryan and myself are to head back towards Sindile, a young male leopard who we managed to track down this morning. He was fast asleep and we didn't spend too much time with him, and I'm hoping by the time we get back to him he would have digested some of the impala that he was feeding on last night, and hopefully play around a little bit for us. But there's no rush to head across there, so we're going to enjoy sightings of animals like these zebra and anything else we find along the way. A reminder about fireside chat this evening, and it's something we always look forward to at the end of the week. So the last half an hour of the broadcast, we will be sitting around a campfire together, answering your questions, sharing some highlights of the week, one of which was some really interesting hyena interaction at the hyena den. And we've been having a lot of great sightings at the den. There's a new addition, a new little cub, and it's possibly this new little cub that's caused a lot of heated arguments, you could say, amongst some of the hyena clan, and we were lucky to witness some of this. And that was one of my highlights. Brent's highlight was no doubt the Nkuhuma pride successfully hunting and taking down a Cape buffalo. So if you do have any questions that you've been thinking about the hyena den or about lions hunting, and specifically regarding the Nkuhuma pride taking down that large male Cape buffalo, please start sending them through, and that way we'll be primed and ready for you at the fireside. Well, in this thick vegetation I think we might want to move on, although Bryan, I don't know if you want to have a crack at that eagle soaring above us. I'm not sure what it is. And let me get my binoculars onto it and take a closer look. It looks like it could be a Tawny Eagle. Beautiful. And it's one of my favorite things to show you are the birds of prey who have the ability to float up in the sky, riding the hot air thermals, riding off the earth, expending close to no energy while they search for potential prey. Beautiful. These eagles, interestingly enough, are renowned for actually following wild dog and sometimes even lion and leopard in the hope that they may eventually make a kill, and this bird will then be able to steal some scraps. So even though it can hunt, like a lot of the carnivores and predators out here, they'll take whatever easy meals they can get. Good. So we did leave Sindile in the Marakeni drainage line. It's a beautiful dry riverbed that flows through Arathusa, and we're probably about 10 to 15 minutes away from there. There's no guarantee that we'll find him when we get there. He could well have moved off, and I'm guessing he actually would have. The tricky thing is, even if he hasn't moved very far, because the bush is very thick and his camouflage is so great, we may not be able to find him, but it's certainly worth going back there, trying our luck. Who knows, possibly we may find tracks of both him and Shadow, his mother, heading off to her next successful kill. That's not unlikely. And even though they did feed on an impala last night, it was stolen by hyena, so they wouldn't have fed on as much as they would have liked to. And his mother may have already made a kill during the course of the day, come back to collect him and return to the kill. And that is actually the sequence of events that unfolded yesterday. And yesterday afternoon we found tracks of her heading in one direction to collect him, and then the two of them coming back literally on top of her paw prints on her way to collect him. So it is quite easy to track leopard when they've been up and down on the same path, and especially when there's two of them on the way back. So that isn't an unlikely scenario that we could bump in or come across this afternoon. But if this is your first WildEarth safari, then you'll soon realize that the plans very often change. And even though we set out with certain goals, there's a very strong chance we may veer off course for many different reasons. We could bump into an animal around this very next corner that we weren't planning to see. Maybe it'll be a cheetah, and then we will probably no longer go to Sindile. A lot of the time there's nothing around the next corner, but you do never know. And there is a big open clearing here that would be quite suited to a cheetah. Sadly though, cheetah do not do extremely well in the Sabi Sands. The predator concentration is very high, and predators like lion, leopard and hyena will all overpower cheetah. So the habitats and food sources here cater greatly for the other mega carnivores and top predators, but not so much the cheetahs. So we've only on a handful of occasions managed to share those with you. It's very windy, and the wind kicked up at about 8 o'clock this morning, about midway through the morning broadcast. And it's not untypical to have some windy days in winter. And the weather generally is actually wonderful. Blue skies, warm temperatures during the day. A great place to be in the winter months. summer can be extremely hot and humid. And also the chance of rain in summer is much higher. And to give you an idea of the temperature, it's about 26 degrees Celsius, 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Scary to think that those are winter temperatures, but we're lucky out here. Now we are officially crossing over from Djuma into Arethusa. And I'm guessing there may be quite a lot of interest from the Arethusa guides in the sighting of Sandile this morning, so we may have to manage that accordingly. We don't have free rein to spend as long as we want with the animals, and everybody needs to share. So we'll be on the radio a little bit finding out exactly what people's plans are. For some of you who are with us, I think it was yesterday morning, we had a wonderful sighting of a very large herd of Cape buffalo moving through Arethusa, and they actually crossed into Arethusa just on our left hand side and moved deep in and eventually ended up at the Arethusa waterhole. And one of our viewers, Kathleen, has asked, is there any chance that we could have seen yellow-billed oxpeckers on the Cape buffalo, as she's only ever seen them once before on the show. And I think that could well have been quite a while back, Kathleen, because I don't remember one being seen in the time that I've been here. That's by any of us. And they have been around, they have been seen around Buffalo's Hook Dam apparently, so you do get yellow-billed oxpeckers here, but they are very rare. Who knows, there could have been one in and amongst that large herd of buffalo and we just didn't see them. They are quite easy to distinguish from the red-billed because of their bright yellow beak, and they're also slightly larger and more robust. And they certainly will feed on animals like the Cape buffalo, or the ticks rather, that parasitize the buffalo. And hopefully one of these days soon we will get to share one with you. I'm dying to see one. It's been a long time since I have. But you'll find that you will get other areas of South Africa where they are probably more common than here. Good afternoon, stations. Okay, well, it appears that we may be the first people out on Arethusa, which kind of gives us free rein to do whatever we like for now. So we will head straight back to the last position of Sandile and start working out where he may have gone if he's not there. It's important when you're rushing to what you think is a confirmed sighting to just check the road carefully, because there's nothing saying that him and his mother would have walked down this road. So I'm permanently checking the road for any signs of their tracks, and it's their tracks that led us to them this morning. They had moved probably about 1.5 miles to 2 miles from where they had their kills stolen. Just want to go and check a little water hole here and see if there's anything drinking there. Failing that, we will send you back to Brent and you can get an update on what he's been up to. It was actually the same very water hole where Shadow and her cub came and drank in the early hours of the morning. None of us were here, but their tracks told us that story. but at the moment there is nobody home. Well, because there's no one here, we will not keep you with us much longer, and we're going to continue into that thick block to try and find Sandile over to Brent's.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we have managed to find a lion, and it's that ginger Matimba from this morning, and look at the size of that belly. He's lying next to the Mawati River and some nice cool sand, but doesn't he look incredibly uncomfortable? Wium just said to me, lions should get a health warning that eating too much will make you feel this terrible, because he certainly doesn't look comfortable. That belly is just enormous. Unfortunately, the rest of the Nkuhuma pride, we found their tracks and they crossed east out of our area. I think they went to the closest waterhole, which is to the east of us, outside of our Travis area. So I'm quite sure they have gone to have a drink and are now doing the exact same thing as this Matimba. I mean, when he walked away from that buffalo carcass this morning, it almost looked like his belly was swaying from side to side. It was so heavy. We will definitely go back to check on that buffalo carcass later on in the safari. Maybe the hyenas might come in when it gets a bit cooler. Put it this way, I'm glad I didn't have such a big Sunday meal as this guy. He's seriously overindulged, and I know you're supposed to have a big nice Sunday meal, but this is just too much. I don't think he's going to do too much more than literally roll from side to side, especially for the next 2 or 3 hours. We will definitely check on him again a bit later, but I think we're going to move on, see if we can find something else. And we'll definitely swing past here on our way back to check if any hyenas find that buffalo carcass. So goodbye, Mr. Fatty. Okay, Mr. Lion, we're going to move along. You enjoy your Sunday afternoon siesta in the riverbed. So, we've been watching the lions devour that carcass for 2 days now. And Bob from Florida noticed that the lions went right inside the chest cavity of that buffalo, and he'd like to know, do they eat all the internal organs and the intestines and the stomach lining? He thought they would just eat the meat. Well, Bob, those internal organs are very high in well, the liver in particular is high in iron. Sorry, Bob. Oh, it looks like this is where he went for a little wander. And he was lying in the cool sand here while the sun wasn't out. He's moved through to there as it's got more hot during the day. So well, they do eat the internal organs. They're rich in nutrients and iron. Unfortunately, I can't really show you those tracks. They have been driven over by another vehicle who has viewed the lion. I can just see them on the side. But so they will definitely eat all the internal organs, and in quite a lot of cases they will eat the intestines and the stomach. They will obviously get rid of the undigested plant matter that's inside the stomach, but they will eat that, and then consume, which leads to those grotesque leaves. It seems like at the bottom of that drainage line we had a few little breakups in signal, so you might have missed my last two sentences. So Bob, I was just saying they will eat the intestines and the stomach as well. Very little goes to waste in a carcass like that, and they're actually the internal organs are often what they'll go for first, because they are high in minerals and nutrients. So let's go have a look. I know the lion's lying next to twin dams, but you never know, it might be there as well. So we saw how bloated and big that male lion was as he was sleeping there, and he does look quite vulnerable. And rhinoceros in Arkansas is wondering whether hyenas would take that opportunity to attack a male lion. That would be the bravest hyenas in Africa. It's very strange. Hyenas will often harass lioness, even young male lions, but you put an adult male lion on the scene and the hyena is very scarce. They wouldn't even dream of attacking him. He's far too big and far too powerful for them to even consider. And also, when it comes to hyenas, there's no actual benefit to them in attacking a sleeping lion unless it's close to the den. There's no real reward. So the reason that hyenas will often attack and harass lions is because there's a meat reward and the risk. They'll weigh up the risk versus the amount of meat or reward that they're going to get from that. And in that situation, the risk of attacking a lion for no reason, the only time they do that if that animal was very injured and very sick, and that would be to remove another predator. But to attack a healthy male lion like that is too much risk and no reward. It's quite an interesting track going down the road here. I'm just gonna position you guys so you can have a look at it. So you have a look here, you can see there's a track going down the road, and quite a distinct track. And I wonder if you guys can figure out which animal made this track. I'll show you a bit closer here. You can see there's this little thing that's been dragging in the road, but there are very distinct footprints on the edge of it. There's one there, another one there. It gets a bit harder, but there as well, you can see there. So I wonder if you guys are able to identify this track. Really nice, unique track. We are seeing them quite a lot at this time of the year between different water holes, and that's your clue to figure out what animal this is. And remember to send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag #SafariLive when you're on Twitter. Speaking of water holes, I think it's a good idea to go check some other ones. I did see some elephant tracks crossing the Mawati, so we're going to go check treehouse waterhole, see if elephants have possibly not moved into that area. Still quite windy, even though it is quite warm now. So referring back to that buffalo carcass and what's left, and there's a bit of skin, there is some tiny bit of sort of sinew and meat left on the bone, and obviously the bones. Gail in Rhode Island would like to know, does anything eat the skin? The hyenas would eat the skin, but possibly find it quite difficult. Different sort of insects would eat portions of the skin, but sometimes with big animals like buffalo and hippo, that skin will actually stay out there. It'll become very dry and very hard. Afternoon, one Madora Ngala, lying very fat and flat in the Mulwati drainage, just to the north of Gowrie Main Junction. Nkuhuma have crossed east into Torchwood. Vultures have cleaned the rest of that Nyari carcass, and that is it so far for the afternoon. Sorry about that, guys. Just letting everyone catch up, and I'm being mocked over the radio by Lee. So that was a very punctuated message. So always good to keep in contact with the other vehicles, keep them updated about what's going on. And the reason we do this is finding animals is a team, very much a team sport, and the more we work together, the better chances we get of finding animals, so we can all provide everyone with the best sightings. So for those of you who might have missed the sunrise safari, Diane and Twitter's asked for an update about what happened. Did that ginger Matimba chase Junior away, or did he leave with the rest of the pride and the Matimba fed by himself? So what happened, Diane, is when we arrived there, the Matimba male was feeding, the rest of the pride were lying around, including Junior. So he didn't actually chase Junior. And then once he moved off, the rest of the pride, including Junior, all fed as much as they could on the remnants of that buffalo, and then moved sometime during the day. They've moved on. Then the vultures came down and literally absolutely pecked that carcass clean. So there's very little meat left. But as I said, that buffalo has not finished giving yet. You will find that the hyenas will definitely find something in that. Oh, hello. As well as various insects and other small creatures will definitely still be feeding on that carcass for a while to come. And we've got a male kudu. Ruminating in the shade. You can actually see the wind bustling around at the moment. It is quite a windy afternoon, and we haven't even got to the windy month yet, which is August, but it is coming. So taking an opportunity to get away from the sun, using the shade of the bush and ruminating. So he's not actually feeding on the tree that he's using the shade of. He's bringing food back up from his stomach and redigesting it. Well, I'm hoping he is heading towards Treehouse Waterhole. I think we might find a few animals there on a warm, windy day like this. So as he disappears into the bush in the direction of Treehouse Waterhole, we are going to do the same, but along the road. To Lynn, Donna and Ginny on Twitter, and Raisa and Benjamin on email. They were the first to get that tracking question correct. It was definitely the tracks of a monitor lizard, and as these water holes are drying up, we often find tracks moving between the different water holes. So very interesting, and well done to you guys. Many others got it right. Those were just the quickest on the buttons this afternoon, so don't stop trying, and we're definitely going to have a few more quizzes later in the drive. So there were a few guesses of crocodile, and which is a good guess. I mean, it is a very similar track. It is a bit different. What I will do later on in the safari is I will go back to an area where we have those tracks again, and I'll explain the difference between a crocodile and a monitor lizard track. It is quite difficult for me to explain while we don't have the track to look at, but generally the crocodile's tail sort of would move more from side to side. It would be a bit wider. There's an impala running past. As well as the fact that the foot is much bigger and has a different size. And as I predicted, we do have some animals here at Treehouse Waterhole, and we've got a zebra off to the right. A few zebra. See, the animals on these windy days are a little bit more jumpy than the still days. They don't like to be surprised. Although even though that zebra saw us coming from a while with this wind. Oh, sorry, Wium, there are zebras about to drink behind us. I'm just going to get us in a better position. Sorry to the other zebras, but one's about to drink. A little bit more interesting and a bit more pretty. Come on guys, don't get stage fright now. You can see how jumpy they are on that wind. That was just the oxpeckers that gave them a fright there. And animals are quite often even doubly more nervous as they come up to the water holes to drink, because they have to put their heads down and they can sometimes feel like they are being stalked. Afternoon tax is a group of Dagga boys at Treehouse Mati. There's one Wanuna Ngala who's lying flat in the Mulwati just to the north of Gari Main Junction. Nkuhuma have crossed east into Torchwood, and I hear these following the Nkonzo of Chambion Drove. Sorry about that, just giving an update. I affirm they crossed east on Mamba Junction with Cheetah Cut Line. Someone has driven over the tracks, but they've left that Nyari. So we've also got some buffalo bulls. So that buffalo carcass we just had a good look at was probably from a buffalo bull similar age to the ones we're looking at now, and he was part of a very similar group to this, a group of old bulls that are past their sort of breeding prime and have been pushed out of the breeding herds and now spend their time around these water holes and move up onto the crests during the evenings where it's a bit warmer, because obviously in the drainage lines where these water holes are, it can be quite cold, and they prefer it to be a little bit warmer up on the crests, and that's where the Nkuhuma Pride found a group of buffalo bulls, probably very similar to this, on the crest, are very close to where they were, where they caught that buffalo. I just got an update in my ear about the Nkuhuma Pride. They did move to the closest water, which is in a water hole to the east of our boundary, and they were last seen lying up there around 1:30 this afternoon. So, apart from this nice big group of buffalo bulls and a few zebra, it looks like that zebra might cross the wall of the water hole. So we'll just wait patiently. Hopefully he might walk right in front of us, and it will be quite a nice sight. Oh, the other one looks like it's coming in to drink, even though it got a bit of a fright last time. Oh, no, going to graze. So zebras are bulk grazers, which means they're not very choosy in the grass they eat, and they will often eat multiple species at the same time. Strangely, buffalo are also bulk grazers, but an animal like a wildebeest is very picky and will actually pick between the different grass species about what it wants to eat. So animals like wildebeest need bulk grazers like buffalo and zebra, because they keep the grass short and enables them to pick and choose the grass species they would like to eat. So we saw those zebras get a fright from an oxpecker landing, and Ginny would like to know, aren't zebras naturally more jumpy than other animals? So, not in my experience, Ginny. I think most animals are quite jumpy when they come down to the water hole. And zebras in this area aren't any more jumpy than the impala or the nyala, but they tend to be more observant, so they do take sort of note of what's going around them. In my opinion, a little bit more. I think it's probably very much of a muchness. It's just that their movements might seem a little bit more jumpy than the other animals. Let's leave all that creatures of treehouse waterhole to enjoy it their Sunday afternoon. And we're going to continue on to see what else we might be able to find. Has been wondering what happened to Stefan. We saw him for a few seconds or minutes before that very exciting lion kill. As I said, we don't like to let Steph out of the cupboard that often, but I have a sneaky suspicion you might be seeing him quite soon. Hello, old boys. Oh, it's a nice oxpecker on his nose. Oh, it went behind his ear. And Joyce was also wondering, is there a fireside chat tonight? Most definitely, Joyce, there will be a fireside chat this evening, and we will be, I'm about to actually ask you to send us questions for the fireside chat during the drive, and specifically focusing obviously on the incredible lion sighting we had with the Nkuhumas hunting buffalo, and also about that absolutely amazing hyena interaction Scott witnessed at the hyena den. So remember to send us questions on those two things, and you can do that by emailing us at questions@wildearth.tv or using the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Beautiful oxpeckers on the back of that buffalo, and if you're lucky and you keep watching this evening, you might get a glimpse of Steph. Goodbye, buffaloes. I think I'm quite tempted to go have a look a little bit later at the hyena den. I haven't been there for a while. I've been sort of sitting with cats. I mean, how terrible is that? I just got to spend pretty much a week with lions. But I definitely think I'd like to go check the hyena den a bit later. And wouldn't it be incredible if we actually follow a hyena from the den through to that carcass? So while we make our way in that general direction, we're going to cross across to Scotty, who I think is pulling out his hair at the moment, and we're going to let him tell you why, and we'll see you a little later.
Welcome to the beautiful Murakeni riverbed system. This is the area where we last saw Sindile this morning. We actually had him just behind us, and we've had a look around the area and haven't had much luck, so we've called you guys in as backup. And maybe if you take a close look around this thick vegetation, maybe you'll notice something that we haven't. I'm gonna get my binoculars and see if we can find anything in here. There are so many hiding places that it make it difficult to actually check every spot. And that's what we're looking for, little black spots, white spots. Oh, what have we here? Well, we have yet again got lucky, and the big cat action continues, albeit sleepy. The only difference between Sindile and that large Matimba male Brent just found for you is that I guess Sindile's stomach is not quite as rotund as that big male lion's. That lion got lucky. He managed to arrive at the kill when there was still enough meat on it where that he could throw his weight around and still get a very good meal out of it. Sindile here, on the other hand, was not so fortunate, and as soon as the hyena would have come onto the scene last night, both him and his mother wouldn't have put up a fight against them. They would have allowed the hyena to take the impala and fight amongst themselves for it. What's interesting though is that leopard will actually often hang around and wait to try and dart in and steal any scraps if the hyena get too involved in their own competitions. Oh, what have you heard, young man? It could just possibly be a precautionary head lift because it is very windy, and in this very windy weather he may be falsely alarmed by a leaf rustling or the grass rustling from the wind and not actually anything approaching him. Now, what I think we should do is take a little drive around, because he doesn't seem to be too playful at the moment. As it cools down, he could become more playful, and we shall return then. But until then, I think it'll be best for us to go and search for any other potential action, and we will leave him to snooze so that when we get back he is fully rested and ready to possibly hunt some tree squirrels or dwarf mongooses for us. We actually got very lucky, and I did a big loop around on foot and didn't find anything, got into the vehicle ready to leave and drove 10 meters and then saw him lying there. So a stroke of fortune this afternoon allowed us that brief glimpse, but it will hopefully mean we can come back later and see what he gets up to. And while we drive around now, who knows, we could maybe bump into his mother hunting, and wouldn't that be a great transition from leaving her sleepy son to finding his mother in full stalk mode. I've never seen her hunt successfully. The only leopard that I actually have seen and shared with you was Karula, Shadow's mother. So we are very fortunate in how in depth we actually know the different leopards and their lineage. So that youngster back there is essentially one of Karula's grandsons. So a lot of you will notice it's very dry out here in the low veld of South Africa at the moment. There's not much greenery around, and all the grass is brown and yellow. And Rhonda would like to know if and when the Djuma waterhole camera, the waterhole actually dries up, will we turn off the waterhole camera? No, we certainly won't. And even though the main actual waterhole may dry up, there's a smaller one kind of behind the waterhole camera and to the left between the lodge and the camera itself, where there's a small pond that is pumped into. So there is water there, and there will continue to be water there throughout the dry season, just not in the big main pond, and it's in a smaller, more controlled pond, you could say. And the camera certainly can see it. It's not very, very close, but you still will get animals coming into that area to drink, and the waterhole camera will certainly be able to get a glimpse on it. It's going to speed things up a little bit. There's a cloud of dust that's, with this windy afternoons, overtaking us. And it's not very pleasant driving in a cloud of dust, and especially not for Bryan, because his camera is going to get filthy. So we need to try and run perpendicular to the wind, will be more suitable for us. Okay, well, there's some fresh zebra tracks heading down this road, so we may get lucky and see them in a large open clearing ahead of us. I think we've got a question through from Sandy, and for those of you who don't know, I'll reiterate it. Shadow did make a successful impala kill yesterday, and she did not hoist it up into a tree. It was a big male impala, but it is still doable by a female leopard, especially once both her and her son Sandile had fed on a portion of it, therefore making it lighter. Even though some of that weight would be in her stomach, it's easier to carry weight when it's in your stomach rather than when it's dangling out your jaw, especially if you're climbing up a tree. So she doesn't really have too many excuses, and it could just be a bad trait of hers. I know another female leopard, the Ravenscourt female, she is no longer, but she had a similar trait. She was a great mother, she raised lots of cubs successfully, but she somehow did not realize that she needed to hoist kills into trees, otherwise hyena would continue to steal them. So, and with other leopards that I have spent time with in the past, but not as closely as the Ravenscourt female. Either way though, I think it just is one of those things that some leopard are good at and others aren't. You know, if you take Karula for example, she fairly often hoists her kills that we see into trees, yet her daughter Shadow doesn't. So I don't think we can assume that because Shadow doesn't, neither will Sandile. And that was Sandy's question. She'd like to know if Shadow will pick up these bad traits and not also hoist kills into trees. More often than not, I've noticed that male leopards are a little bit cleverer than the females, or maybe it's not intelligence thing, it's possibly just that they're bigger and it's easier for them because they've got more power to hoist kills into trees. But it'll be interesting to watch that play out. As far as I think it just depends on the individual leopard, and I don't think the behavior of its mother has too much to play into. And especially in the case that we know Karula does hoist kills, we know that Nkuhuma and Quarantine, two of her sons, do the same thing, yet Shadow, her daughter, doesn't. So it also may be simply that we have caught at inopportune moments which do not portray her very well as a hoisting leopard. Because chatting to Roy, one of the Arathusa guides, he told me that she does usually hoist her kills. So maybe we're just catching her in a bad patch. dust clouds are clogging up my throat. Oh. So I'm not sure what to do next or where to go, so we might leave it up to you, and I'm going to park and wait at the next road junction, and the first person to send in a tweet saying right or left will be the person determining our direction of movements. While we wait at that next junction, we can stop and listen for any sounds of the bush that may provide us with useful information, or simply some nice noises to listen to. Well, here we are. It's not quite a fork in the road, it's actually a four-way intersection, so we could either go straight left or right, and we'll stop and listen while we wait here. But while we do, we can take a look at quite an interesting tree, and they're a landmark here in the Sabi Sands. You do see various dead trees that line the horizon, but this specific one is called a knobthorn acacia tree. And the reason why we see so many of them is because they've got very nutritious bark that's easy to peel off. And the culprit for peeling off this bark is the elephants. And they'll peel off the bark, chew on it, obtaining minerals, nutrients. The problem for the tree is that it cuts off the transport system from the roots to the leaves, and you'll see a very pale shade of white as Bryan zooms down, and you can see where the bark has been ripped off this tree, causing it to die. Now, it will thankfully not die and go to waste. This dead tree will provide a wonderful perch for birds of prey with large wingspans that would battle to land in it if it was covered with leaves and smaller branches and twigs. And it'll also provide a home for animals like tree squirrels and monitor lizards. So it's a necessary destruction that these elephants perform out here. And it also creates some beautiful scenery for us. Well, pretty nightmare, Julia, Jenny and Pamela, you were the first people to come in to say right, so thank you for your help in guiding me on this safari. We will indeed go right, and as soon as we find something down this road, we'll be sure to let you know. But we're going to send you across to Brent now. Enjoy.
Welcome back. And we found a nice group of female ones, one young male giraffe. There are 5 that I can see. There's possibly 1 or 2 more. Nice to see a big group of giraffe. This one closest to us here is busy feeding off a buffalo thorn. One of our evergreens, so taking advantage of that. Next one's about to cross across the road, right in front of us. Quite a harsh light at the moment where we are. I'm going to move. I'm just waiting for the giraffe to move across the road first. I didn't want to scare them, and we don't want to scare any of the animals or put too much pressure on this wind. They can be quite nervous. As it's got drier, we definitely are seeing more giraffe in certain areas, and this area in the south and western corner has been quite productive. Sorry, northwestern corner. Where's my directions today? We're going to try drive a little bit closer to these giraffe. If they do react badly, then I'm going to not push it any further. It is quite windy today, so animals can be quite jumpy in this weather. Unfortunately, in this weather, they tend to, the one got a little bit of a fright, and the bush is getting quite thick up ahead. I'm not going to put any more pressure on them. I think they are moving slowly towards Sydney's dam. So what I might do is pop around there. We'll also have a look for the hippo on Hippo Beach, and hopefully they'll come out in that area as well. They might take a little bit of time, but it's definitely worth going to have a look around in that area, and hopefully those giraffe will come out and head down to that waterhole for a drink. So let's head off to Sydney's and see what's happening there. Oh, number 6 who got left behind, having a little jog. It's an older male. Okay. They seem to be heading in that direction of Sydney's, so hopefully they do pop out there. It's quite a steep drop off the road here. Now, quite often I know people have quite bad reactions to this particular insect. I don't know, how's that look for him? I'm going to see if he walks onto the dash. Oh, he flew off. Can you get him on the bonnet there? Otherwise, got him. You got him? Mm-hmm. Oh, he's going to disappear. Well, let's see if I can coax him back onto my hand. But I know a lot of people have quite negative connotations to that insect. That was a type of cockroach. And obviously, as you can see, I'm not really worried that he's dirty or anything like that. I'm more worried he's going to fly away. Oh, there we go. Just see if I can coax him onto the dash. Doesn't seem to like the dash too much. He's disappearing under. Oh, you found a nice safe place there. So I know a lot of people have sort of quite negative connotations with cockroaches. Cockroaches form really, really important parts of the ecosystem, and they do feed on lots of detritus. So most cockroaches we have out in the bush, we don't find them in our homes and that. They feed off the decaying leaf litter and even little bits of carrion and stuff like that. But quite harmless and actually quite cleanly. Cockroaches, that's another big misconception about cockroaches being dirty. They're not. They're quite cleanly as insects go. And I can guarantee you, a dung beetle is a lot more dirty than a cockroach. So as those giraffes hopefully head towards that waterhole where we're heading, Mavis is just noting she's never heard a giraffe make a sound or a noise, and do they? And also whether they're declining. Mavis, giraffe are not declining in number. They are quite safe for the southern giraffe that we see. They occur widely through southern Africa, and in no means in trouble. Hello, guinea fowls. Flock of helmeted guinea fowl. And Mavis, sorry, just to end off for you there, Mavis. Giraffe do make noise, very, very seldom. They can groan and grunt. The only time I've heard giraffe make noise is when they have lions attached to them, or when they are, or during game capture procedures. Now, catching a giraffe is quite a difficult thing. Generally, one of the methods, and one of the more commonly used methods, is to dart it, but not with a full dose, so sort of make it dozy. And then as the ground crew, as it's quite dangerous because you run with a rope and you have to trip the giraffe to get it down onto its side. So giraffe can be quite a difficult one to do game capture with, quite dangerous for the ground crew and for the giraffe. But it is so far the best way to move them between different reserves. Nice little flock of helmeted guinea fowl feeding on the short grass after bird seeds and other little things like insects. Bird seeds, sorry, grass seeds. Quite interestingly, a guinea fowl will pair off during the summer to have their chicks, and then during the winter months they will form flocks, and in central South Africa these flocks can get into their thousands on the big open grasslands of the Highveld. Oh, they found something good in that area, sort of all stopped at once. But let's so we're going to go from a nice little flock of guineas to a covey of something, and let's see if you guys can guess what Scott's got. He's got a covey of, you're going to have to wait to find out.
Well, I really do love guinea fowl, but these crested francolin, although they are in long grass, are also very pretty little birds that are quite similar to guinea fowl in their habits. They live in small flocks or coveys, and they also spend a lot of time on the ground. Well, they do all their feeding on the ground, and much like a guinea fowl and a chicken, they'll use their feet to scratch around and unveil little insects or seeds. They're omnivores, and they're busy going about, I'm fairly certain, the same business as the guinea fowl that you're viewing with Brent. They've got the very distinctive white stripe through their eye, so easy to distinguish between the other francolin of this area. And thankfully, we not only are here with this covey of francolin who appear to be coming closer and closer to us, which is a bonus, but there's also a very large animal feeding not too far from us. And we're going to take you across for a quick look at that. Ta-da! An elephant! And I've only seen 2 so far, but there could be more within this herd. Because it's quite hot at the moment, the elephants seem quite relaxed and are very lazily feeding this afternoon. Thankfully, though, they are feeding towards us, or at least this individual is, so we can patiently wait here and see how close it comes. As it moves, you'll see that little blackbird following it, and I'm sure for the regular viewers you'll be very accustomed to the fork-tailed drongos, but for the new viewers, they're wonderful little birds that will follow large herbivores, even sometimes small animals, in the hope that they will flush insects that they can fly down and capture on the wing. So unlike the francolin, who will feed on the ground, the fork-tailed drongo typically do most of their feeding in the air. I'm just going to reposition ever so slightly to try and get us a better angle and allow this elephant to keep feeding towards us. That way we may get a close-up visual. If we give it the option, it may well continue towards us, but if we were to barge in there and try and get close to it, it may not work so well. So I'm just going to take this opportunity now, before it does get too close to the road, to loop ahead of its path of movements. Oh, wonderful. We may actually skip this one because I've seen a smaller one just up ahead. You'll also notice that there could well be more and more elephants appearing out of this vegetation as we go along. And here one's about to pop out onto the road. Tail out, that's a sign of tension, and we must be cautious of elephants when they do that, but that youngster we don't have anything to worry about. Let's try and get a closer look at the smallest one that I've seen out of this herd so far. Now, elephants will feed on a wide variety of vegetation, and it's interesting how they alter their feeding depending on the time of the year, targeting the most nutritious morsels that they can find. They are quite selective eaters in what they choose. Not fussy, but selective. So they'll often test by smelling plants before ripping them out the ground to make sure that they are in fact happy to be eating them. And they'll often use their feet to help them in breaking off or getting to the certain parts of the plant that they desire to feed on. You can possibly hear a go-away bird calling in the distance. I wonder what it can see. Something will possibly be alarming it. But sometimes they are just chatting amongst other go-away birds. And the call that you need to listen out for sounds a little bit like this. Quack! And it's always useful to keep track of all these alarm calls that we hear, even though we cannot respond to everyone. I am going to keep a close eye on that general area, just to make sure there's not a leopard or anything of interest snooping below that go-away bird. I think we can try and reposition again. Great, well we should be able to get some closer visuals of this ellie, and I think it's its mother off to the right, the initial elephant that we did see. And it could be the elephant that crossed the road with its tail out, could be an older generation also from that cow. So it could just be the three of them moving together, but hard to say at this stage. And the rest of the herd could be in this thick vegetation up ahead. Well, I pointed out the go-away bird calling earlier, but now Julia has just asked, what is the other bird that we can hear calling? And if it's that robotic kind of sound, it would be the fork-tailed Drongo. That's the only other call that I've picked up on, but I may have been tuned into a different frequency to you. So I'm going to listen more closely now to see if I can hear any other birds calling. Also a little bit tricky for me to know exactly what you are hearing relative to what I'm hearing. The microphones do pick up audio incredibly well, but they're quite directional, so depending on where the camera is facing, it will alter quite drastically the sounds you will hear. Beautiful golden afternoon sunlight. This is absolutely awesome. And the bird call you can hear now is the fork-tailed Drongo, so if that is the same call you were hearing earlier, then we are on the same page. Now, you'll notice it's very windy, and you can also hear the wind being picked up by the microphone. And we often mention how the wind can make the prey animals more nervous. But Tom now has just asked whether it doesn't play both ways. Does it not make it harder for the predators to hear their prey and detect their prey? Yes, it certainly will make it harder for predators to hear their prey, but that doesn't make the prey items feel any safer simply because there's slightly less chance that they may be detected by a predator. They simply know that they cannot hear anything approaching them. So even though it does decrease the chance to a degree of a predator finding them, that doesn't make them feel any better, because there still is that chance that every noise they hear could be a leopard or a lion creeping up on them, and that's why they are on high alert. So I certainly hear where you're coming from, but if you put yourself in the prey item's shoes, it's not going to be enough to make you feel better about things, and you still, every little rustle you hear, you're going to turn your head to make sure it's not something. At least I know I would. at this time of the year, the elephants can start getting quite resourceful in order to get to whatever plants have not been fed on yet. And this big cow appears to be moving some fallen down trees that have been acting as a natural barrier against other animals eating them. But the elephants can come and move branches and fallen down trees to access these untapped resources. And let's see if she doesn't do it again. I can hear a lot of rattling testiculars alarm calling off to our left. So I'm just looking across there. It would possibly tie in with the go away birds alarm call that we heard earlier. And maybe there is a predator moving through this area. Possibly Shadow, looking for her and Sindile's next meal. I think I found out what it could be. Now, we can now hear a pearl-spotted owlet calling. So it's possibly that these rattling testiculars and other birds have found this little predatory owl. And now even the fork-tailed drongo amongst these elephants are also joining in the cacophony. So it's in all likelihood a tiny little owl that's causing all the disturbance. And that's why it is difficult to respond to every alarm call that we may hear. It can sometimes be for something small that's difficult to find, like a pearl-spotted owlet or a slender mongoose. We did actually get lucky and find a pearl-spotted owlet at the beginning of yesterday's sunset safari, for those of you that were with us. And maybe we'll get to show you another one this afternoon. Last I heard, Sindile was still fast asleep in the same place we left him. So I'm not sure if it's going to be worth us heading back there now. We'll spend a bit more time with these ellies. And possibly head back there. We also do have the fireside chat that we need to get back to. So that will have an impact on the plans for this afternoon. And for those of you who may have just joined in the last few minutes, just a reminder that we do have the fireside chat to look forward to. Look at this. Awesome, it gave us a little bit of a head shake there to show us who's boss. And maybe it will continue to give us a little bit more attitude. It's so close you can maybe even hear it chewing. Oh, there's the fork-tailed drongo shooting in for an easy meal. Come and say hello to us. What it's doing is it's plucking out tiny acacia saplings. They look like flaky bark acacias. And again, this goes to show how selective they are And also how it very cleverly used its foot there to aid in breaking that branch off. There's some arrow-marked babblers approaching us, so that may be the noise you can hear. Now we might get an example of how the ellies will try and feed on vegetation that's underneath or growing in and amongst hard to reach places, like underneath this small leadwood tree. And I guess that's the benefits of having a trunk. You can reach in these hard to reach places. Now, you may have noticed that the views you were getting on Brent's camera were slightly different a little bit earlier on the drive, and it's a new camera that we are trying out at the moment, and it appears to be giving us a little bit of trouble at the moment. So we're trying to troubleshoot the problem, but at the moment the camera is not operational. Sadly, it was working initially, as you would have seen, but for some reason unbeknownst to us, it is all of a sudden cut out, and the other camera is in for routine maintenance. Understandably, on these bouncy, dusty roads, the cameras get more than their fair share of use and punishment, you could say. So the other camera is back in Johannesburg getting fixed, which leaves us just with the one camera that you are looking at now, and you're stuck with me for the foreseeable future. Oh wow, the forktail Drongo just came and landed right in front of us here. And you can hear kind of how the noise is fairly robotic that it makes. They can mimic the calls of other birds and even other animals. They're very, very clever, the forktail Drongos. And they've been known to mimic the calls of drongos and of mongooses and meerkats, so that they drop their prey and scurry back into their burrows, and then the drongo can fly down and steal their prey without them even knowing. Obviously, a lot of the time the drongo will be providing them with a real alarm call for any potential threats, and in general they'll be doing the mongooses and meerkats a favor, but from time to time they claim their payments, I guess, for helping, being extra eyes. Wonderful. The arrow-marked babblers are singing to us again. And isn't that a wonderful noise to hear? There'll be probably about 5 or 6 of them calling together, and they do fly around in these family flocks. This is how it does test some pieces of grass or vegetation and then toss them aside, not convinced at how tasty they may be. Well, some of you may have been here while we first came across these elephants, and the one that crossed the road held its tail out horizontally, so it wasn't dangling down comfortably like the individual we can see now. And I mentioned that it was signs that the elephant wasn't entirely happy, and Ron from Scotland would like to know, what other signs can we look for with elephants? And not only what should we look out for if they may not be happy with our presence, but what should we do if they are not happy with our presence? It's a great question, Ron, and always a difficult one to answer, because there are often many variables within any of these equations. But in general, if elephants hold out their tail horizontally, it means you should not put any further pressure on them, and either stop where you are or even possibly retreat. Now, because that was a youngster, I wasn't too concerned about it attacking us, but had it have been an adult, I certainly would have stopped the vehicle and possibly even switched off, and in some scenarios may back up. Now, other signs or signals that we should look out for are the head held high, ears out facing us, making themselves look as big as possible and as intimidating as possible. And the reason why they would do that is obviously because they feel threatened, and they now want to try and make themselves feel that they're putting on a show to warn you how big they are and how dangerous they could be. So that's another major sign. Whether to back up or stand your ground is always a tricky one. If you do have a clear path to exit a sighting, it can often be a good option. But if you don't, by backing up a little bit, it gives the animals a false sense of ownership or dominance, and they feel that, okay, well, the person's backing up, I'm going to continue to put pressure on them, and that can be a slippery slope. So sometimes standing your ground would be better, because it'll make the animals think twice, be it elephant or lion or rhino. Most of the animals, by standing your ground and staying put, it makes them think twice about committing to a charge. Sometimes even driving towards a charging elephant can help deter it, because it thinks, jeez, this person seriously means business, now they're coming towards me, maybe I should reconsider things. And it's not dissimilar from how us as humans would respond. Even if somebody half your size came up to you, Ron, but was very confident and very aggressive towards you, you may think twice about taking them on. Whereas if that same person was to turn and run, and you were in an altercation with them, you would chase them and run them down, because you'd immediately feel more dominance over them and be more inclined to attack them. And it's very similar with a lot of the animals out here. So the tail held out horizontally, head held high, ears held out, making themselves look big, are things to look out for. Also, one last thing that's quite a useful tip, Ron, is when viewing elephant bulls, especially large bulls, if you see them draping their trunk over their tusk, to the side of their tusk, it's often associated with them being in must. And when they are in must, it's no guarantee, but there is a chance that they are going to be more boisterous and more aggressive and a little bit more violent than when they are not in must. And for those of you who are not sure what must is, it's a sexually heightened stage where testosterone levels are increased dramatically within bull elephants. It happens sporadically throughout the year, anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months at a time. And during these stages, it is certainly worth giving them a wider berth, in case they are not wanting to be playful with you or be tolerant of you. A frequently asked question by our viewers and by guests who come on safari is, how do you determine the age of animals? and Keith is interested to know specifically for elephants. It's extremely difficult, Keith, and I guess I could ask the same question back to you. How would you age humans? You could line up an array of different aged people and guess their ages and be wrong with quite a few of them, and they're our own species. So for us to guess the age of animals is very difficult. And I'm a firm believer that the only way to be certain is to have been there when the animal was born and then keep track of it every day thereafter. But there are some rough guidelines that we can use. This youngster that we're looking at, I would guess is about 2 to 3 years of age, but it is a tricky one. Another rule of thumb that can be applied to elephants is that if a mother's calf can pass underneath its stomach, it is under a year of age, and if it can't, well then it's over. But understandably, you could get a short mother with a tall calf and vice versa. So it's no easy way to do it. The fact that this one's tusks are not protruding doesn't really mean too much, because other elephants of its same size could already have tusks protruding. But at a guess, I would say anywhere from 2 to 3 years of age for this one. With the older females, when they do get very old, and the males, you can see there's a very small dent above the eye of this calf. When the sunlight connects at the right angle, it's actually, just about now it looks pretty good. A few inches above its eye, there's a very small dent. Now, that dent will become pronounced as it becomes older. And so when it's a very old cow or calf, there will be a large depression that you could almost nest a grapefruit in. Oh, I think we might be getting some attitude. Hello. Oh, no, it reconsidered. It reconsidered. It was thinking about showing us who was boss, but now is hurriedly heading back to the side of the vehicle where its mother is. Gracie, good to have you with us. And Gracie's just 8 years old, and she's asked, what does it mean if the elephants hold their ears close to their head or flat against their head? It usually means they're quite relaxed, Gracie, and it also means that they're not very hot. When the weather's very warm and they want to cool down, they will flap their ears out, and they've got lots of veins that they can pump blood through that helps them to keep cool. So in hot weather you see them flapping their ears quite a lot, but when they're relaxed and the weather's cool and they're in a very good mood, they typically just hold their ears flat against their head. So that's typically the behavior we see them doing, unless of course they are charging you and they are fully committed to running at you. And when it's a mock charge or a display charge, when they're trying to show you that they're big and strong, their ears will be out to make themselves look big. But as soon as they mean real business, they will flatten their ears against their head, curl up their trunk, and come running up to you, and then possibly hit you with their trunk. So that's not what we want, but that is another time that they would hold their ears flat against their head. But it's a little bit different to, I think, what you mean here when it's just moving around. Wow, we just have to reposition again. I think I'm going to leave these elephants to their own devices and possibly try and sneak back to Sindile, see if we can get one last view of him. I'm not sure what we're going to do about the fireside chats, due to the fact that there's only one camera now. but we will keep you posted on that as the show commences. But for now, I'm just going to continue on as normal. Wendy in Florida is interested to know a little bit more about must, the sexually heightened stage that the elephant bulls will get into. And she'd like to know, does it happen at a specific time of year, or are there any kind of set things that we can expect from elephants in must and how often it happens? It's at any time during the year, and the reason for that is that elephants typically don't have a set breeding season. It would be a little bit difficult for them to plan in advance because it's a 22-month gestation period. So it's useful that males are coming into the sexually heightened stage at all stages through the year. That way ensuring that there's always some males around chasing the females down, hoping to mate with them, and ensuring that females who are in season do get mated with. So it can happen at any stage, and it can last, like I said a little bit earlier, from anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. And their behavior in that stage will depend on the individual. But the word must, interestingly, is actually derived from an Indian word called, or actually meaning mischievous in Indian, and that would have been used on the Indian elephants. So in general, they are a little bit mischievous when they are in must, I guess. Well, I have some great news, everyone, and somebody, I'm not sure exactly who, but managed to fix Brent's broken camera that we're test driving at the moment. So he would like to give you an update on what's going on, and we will see you all a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. We've had a few teething problems, but it looks like we've got that sorted for now. So what we're going to do, as I said earlier, when I had that buffalo skull, I took it out from a different area, and I've brought it with us to show you those horn moths. So I'm going to actually go put it back with the rest of those bones, and we can actually then go have a look at what a buffalo carcass will look like even later. This buffalo, from what I heard from our long-time viewers, is that it was actually killed by the Styx Pride quite a long time ago. I can't remember the year. So, but we're going to go return it. So maybe if you guys can remind me, our long-term viewers, which year this buffalo was killed, and it was killed by the Styx Pride opposite the Djuma waterhole. And you can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. Okay, so we've just arrived back at the carcass. I'm just going to position so Wium can have a good view over it. Okay, so we have returned to the scene of me stealing the buffalo skull, and I'm going to go put it back now. There we go. Ah, incredibly heavy. I guess even now that it's lost the bottom jaw and the nose, still probably about 2.5, 3 kilograms. So close on 10 pounds, probably 7, 8 pounds. And I can even tell you, I picked it up from right here. So as you can see, now this is a buffalo carcass that's gone on further. And you can see how the bones are spread, those sinews that are holding that one we saw earlier together, the fresh carcass. And the animals have spread it. Hyenas might have taken a piece off and got a bottom jaw here. And see, this buffalo actually looks a little bit younger than the one that the Nkuhuma's caught. The teeth aren't quite as badly worn as the one with the Nkuhuma's. But there we go. That's a buffalo jawbone, very big jawbone. And I'm going to have a quick, careful look at the rest of the bones, see if I can find something interesting about them. Problem with so many bones is so many bones to look at. Ah, that looks a little more promising. There we go. So what I was looking for, and it's going to be a little bit difficult, but you can see this has been gnawed by something very small. So it hasn't been a big animal like a hyena or a lion. Tiny little teeth marks. And I'm reckoning these are from an animal that is probably much smaller than this bone. I think it's one of the little mouse species that's come and chewed on here to try collect on calcium. And I've actually seen impala and inyala feeding on this specific buffalo set of bones to try get calcium. So there we go. Isn't that fascinating? So I'm hoping when I jump back in my seat, one of our old-time viewers can tell us what year this happened, and we'll see what a buffalo looks like over time. One last thing before we move along is you can actually see here's a piece of the buffalo's boss, and that is all horn moth larvae. If we go underneath, which is really interesting, you can see these are all empty now. The moths have hatched from them, but you can see how they burrow and eat through, right through, and this would be the thickest part of the buffalo's boss. Absolutely incredible. I mean, look at that. It's almost like a honeycomb in there. And from the top, you can see there's the boss, and then it's just this mass of horn moth larvae, carapaces here, not carapaces, sort of housings. And you can see there how you can actually, I don't know, Wium, can you see through the light?
Yeah.
So you can see how they've gone right the way through this piece of buffalo boss.
A bit too close.
A bit too close? How's that?
Yep.
So you can see how they've gone directly through. Absolutely incredible that this is probably one of the only animals in the world that's able to digest keratin. So a very, very specialized little niche filled by a tiny moth. That's what's so amazing about the bush, is that everything has its place. Let's get moving again. Enough talking about old bones, and see what else we can find. I heard a little report a bit earlier that there are male leopard tracks in this area we're in now, just to the west of the Djuma Dam Cam. So we're going to go have a look. They're going up and down, and from what I can hear in the radio, that there are 2 male leopards, 2 adult male leopards, and Aubrey seems to think they've been fighting, so it's worth having a look in this area. And it's probably Mvula and Tingana who are having a big dispute over territory at the moment.
Welcome back, and it appears like the new camera is bringing some new problems to the WildEarth team, so huge apologies for that, but it's just one of those things, and hopefully the guys will be able to get to the bottom of it. I am technologically void, so I won't even be able to have a clue as to what's going on. If it worked in the beginning, I don't know why it's not working now, basically. Anyway, we shall now probably think about diverting the fireside chat plan. It's probably not going to be possible, but who knows, it may still happen. But for now, I think it's best for me to just carry on as normal, and don't worry, we also enjoy the fireside chats just as much as you do, so we will make sure if it's not done this evening, it will be done on another day. And everything does happen for a reason, so maybe we should head off and see what we can find, because at the end of the day, we can sit around a fire any day of the week, but we can't necessarily go and watch the hyena arrive at the remains of that buffalo carcass, can we? So I think I'm going to head off there, and if needs be and we manage to resolve the problem, we can always alter the plan. But for now, I think I may start hustling off in that direction, because it's getting to that stage of the evening where the hyena may be starting to rustle about. Okay. Well, after all I've just said, Brent's camera is now working again, so we are going to stick to the original plan. But like I said right at the beginning of the drive, the plans often change out on safari, so don't be surprised if it changes again. Well, I'm just going to stop here and try and get Bryan into a good spot to show you the setting sun. It's not your typical view that we would stop and show you, and that's why I'm keen to try and do it, because there's some beautiful marula skeletons out to the horizon, and it may be worth letting Bryan have a little spin on the camera. You may alter a few settings just to make the shot work out, because we are going to be shooting directly into the sun. But I really do love marula trees, and they are an iconic tree of this area, and at this time of the year their silhouettes make for really beautiful, beautiful views. So let's take a look. Now the marulas are the very large trees that we can see, one on the right of your screen, one kind of growing out of the sun, and there's a combination of other trees around, most of which have got bare leaves. The one with leaves, you can clearly see up to the left of the sun, is an apple leaf tree, one of the few evergreens that we'll find growing out on crests like this. And we've got some die-hard trees, or the bush willows on the left you're zooming past now, who are hanging on to a few leaves, but they will continue to drop. And like I said, these are the strongest of the bush willows that are still managing to hold their leaves. Most of them would have dropped off. What a beautiful view. Well, we really are spoilt with some beautiful, beautiful scenery here on Safari Live, and sometimes it's important to just stop and take a look around, even if there's no animals around. But speaking of looking around, you are about to have a drastic change of scenery and head over to Brent and carry on the adventure with him. We'll see you a bit later.
Welcome back, folks. I'm taking a leaf out of the Leopards and Lions book, and I'm getting on top of a termite mound to use this as an advantage where Aubrey thinks these leopards have gone to. I've just heard a Franklin alarm calling on the other side of the drainage line. It did sound quite stressed. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa! That was close. But we're going to get moving now. I'm going to go back into that area where we heard that Franklin alarm calling, and hopefully those leopard tracks have moved into this area. Now, getting down this termite mound probably going to be a little bit more difficult than getting up. So, which way do you think, Firm? Front or bottom? Front or back?
The front is steeper.
Front is steeper, so you obviously want me to go down the front. Okay, let's see. The wildebeest wants to laugh at me. And there's a nice thorny creeper I didn't notice when I first came up. Okay, you ready? Termite mountain surfing. There we go. Not too bad. Hey, you thought I was going to fall. So that, on a more serious note, those alarm calls did sound quite positive, and the leopard tracks were heading in this direction. It is quite a thick area, but we are going to try drive along a big elephant path and see if we manage to find anything. We're right in front of Gallagher Camp, and so you might have heard some people and kids. They're getting ready for their fireside chat. And I'm sure by now the fire's been started, and the rest of the guests out in game drive, a few of them have just decided to enjoy the evening from camp. So back to that large, or the buffalo carcass, that old one we were just looking at, and I picked up quite a big bone. Lee is wondering why nothing ate that whole bone. So the only thing that possibly could break up some of that bone is a hyena. Again, there's not enough reward for the hyena to break up that bone, so that's probably why not. And slowly over time it will get broken up by the elements, and also by things like giraffe and impala and the rodents chewing on that bone for calcium. Sorry guys, I'm just going to concentrate a little bit as we drive through here. I'm just going to pop my earpiece off for a second. those alarm calls came from this drainage line down to our right. I just want to get past this sticky part. We have found Mvula in this area quite a few times, as well as Krula. So at the moment, as far as I can tell you, we are looking for a male leopard, an adult male leopard from the tracks Aubrey found, and they came in from the north directly towards this area. And this area is a myriad of small drainage lines, so it is quite easy for them to disappear. So I'm just going to concentrate quite for a second. I'm just going to get a little bit higher in my seat as well. The reason I'm doing this is so I can see down into the drainage line while we go very slowly along here. I think we're going to try this little track that goes down into the drainage line. That Franklin alarm call was in this general area. So we're just going to stop here on the edge of this very big dip that I'm not going to be able to cross. And just listen for a few seconds and see what we can hear. If you guys hear any birds, we might hear some birds at this time of the day, so listen out carefully and see how many species you can hear over the next while. So unfortunately, we haven't been able to hear any further alarm calls. I have seen a gap that might get me into the drainage line, so we're going to move there now and see if we can see any tracks. Very carefully and listen out. I'm pretty sure that Franklin alarm call came from around that large termite mound that we're making our way towards. Also, zoomies keep a look at it and arrive at the Djuma Dam, so keep watching there as well. Gonna have a quick look around here. If I was a male leopard, I would like Sorry guys, it seems like in this drainage line the signal is quite bad. I'm really sorry. We will move out of here shortly. I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing around this large termite mound, and this is the area where I heard that alarm call. But we're going to move away out of the drainage line into a safer signal area. We were discussing about those Franklin alarm calls. Normally I wouldn't put so much effort into a Franklin alarm call. It could be from a predatory bird, but I did have a look. I didn't see any predatory birds. It could be from a slender mongoose. Quite often it is from an animal like a slender mongoose. But the fact that the male leopard tracks were heading in this area is what prompted me to go into that drainage line and try have a better look around where that those alarm calls were. But guys, don't forget, it's Sunday night, so fireside chat. And please remember to tune in at about 5:30. Scotty's on his way there, setting up already, and I'll be joining him just after 5:30. As well, the questions that you can send through for fireside chat. We're going to be discussing that incredible behavior that Scotty witnessed at the hyena den on the Sunrise Safari a few days ago, and we will also be discussing that amazing buffalo hunt of the Nkuhumas. So please do join us for fireside chat. So just an update on what else is going on. It's in the reserve. I've just spoken to one of the other, or not spoken to, heard one of the other guides, and they are at that last position of that buffalo carcass that the Nkuhumas have killed, and there are no hyenas or anything there yet. I think they're probably still a bit nervous, thinking that that male lion's still around. So those leopard tracks might have headed more this way, so we're going to check carefully along here and a little bit further up the Vuyatela access road, and hopefully we find some tracks or hear some alarm calls that lead us to that animal. There's a strong likelihood this leopard we're looking for could be Mvula. And Gene from Los Angeles is wondering when was the last time Mvula was seen. I haven't seen Mvula for a while. I know he was seen in a property to the south of us, but interestingly enough, Tingana was also seen chasing him. So it seems like this dispute is continuing, and so these leopard tracks could just as easily be from Tingana. But what Aubrey did say, there were two sets of leopard tracks in the area, one going north, one going south, both as fresh as each other. So it'll be very interesting if someone does find them this evening, to find out whether it is Mvula or Tingana in the area. As far as his injury to his eye is, last time I saw him, it looked like it was healing quite well, and not really affecting him too badly at all. the topic of leopards, Kathy in Florida would like to know what would happen if Karula came across Sindile by himself. Very interesting. I don't think she would kill Sindile, and that is just based on some of the behavior I've seen from leopards in the Sabi Sands before. I've seen a female leopard come across her daughter's offspring. She is sometimes quite aggressive towards them, hissing and whatnot, but I never saw them kill the offspring. But that's not to say that she wouldn't. But I think in this case, I don't think she would kill Sindile. I might be completely wrong. That's just my personal opinion on the matter. And a couple of years ago, I was very fortunate to witness the first ever recorded adoption by a leopard. A grandmother leopard adopted her daughter's son. It was a very, very interesting sighting. There was a female leopard called the Dudley Riverbank female who had two sub-adult male offspring. They were probably about a year old at that time, maybe a little bit older. And then her mother, which was known as the 3-4 female, had a cub of about 6 months old, and they both came onto an Impala kill that was being killed by the 3-4 female. And absolutely fascinating is that they shared the kill, and when they moved off, the one young male who belonged to the Dudley Riverbank female left with his grandmother and, I suppose for lack of a better word, his uncle. That particular leopard was actually killed, the young male that belonged to his grandmother, and she ended up looking after this young male all the way through to maturity. And as far as I know, that is the first record of that ever happening. And we've just stopped with one of my favorite trees on the whole of Djuma, and also my nemesis tree, which I nearly fell out of alive, and quite a rare tree in this area. This is the only one I know about on Djuma and Arathusa. And you can see they've got wonderful pods. I'm going to see if we can find one. The Latin name is called Pterocarpus angolensis. It is a teak tree. Going to try find these seeds. At my house I actually have a huge bowl of these seeds as a display. We can actually see that the nice fresh leaves are coming out quite early, and it has been bare for quite a while, and now we can see there's some new leaves coming out. I'm just going to see it. There we go, there's some seeds right here. So here we go. Here's the seed. This one's a little bit deformed, but normally they're perfectly round, and if you take this off the little stem, they make really pretty additions. So in a bowl at home I've got a whole bunch of teak seeds, and I've actually collected them from all over Africa. I've got some from Zambia, I've got some from Botswana, I've got some from Tanzania. A bit naughty to travel with these things, but I do. And in that bowl as well, all the bush willow seeds. So I've got a whole collection of seeds that sort of, I think, look very nice in the middle of my dining room table. But there we go. And now I can add a teak seed from Djuma to the collection.
You had an uncle coming from the back. Sounds like in your bottle.
And Vim's just heard some Inyala barking behind us. Well done, Vildy. We'll go have a quick look there now. Okay, so we're just going to have a quick look up on the road there. This is the general direction that male leopard was supposed to be moving. So excuse my Ferrari safari. Just want to get there quite quickly. There's a crested francolin that's just alarmed in the same area. So now when we've got more than one species alarming, it's generally a better sign. What was that on the side? So keep your eyes peeled. Have a look for tracks here. Francolin alarm call came from somewhere in this vicinity. Going to stop and listen for a second. I'm going to stop where I can get quite a nice long view down this road in either direction. So we're just going to listen very carefully now for a few seconds. We hear the fork-tailed Drongo, but he's not alarming at anything. We're just going to have a quick look up this road. There's a big animal path that leopard and lion often use. You got your leopard spotting eyes out, wildebeest?
Let me just put them on.
And for those of you wondering why I'm referring to Wium as the wildebeest, that is his nickname around camp. I think they might have been quite a lot deeper into this block, but we're still going to check these big game trails that the leopards use quite regularly. So this really big game path, there's a few of them. The main one I want to check is just on the crest of this hill. A few of you might be wondering why we didn't return to the buffalo carcass. Someone else was just there and there was no action there. So I decided to move into this area where the male leopard tracks were and was hoping to maybe just try and grab a sighting of a male leopard before fireside chat. And so far, no luck, but it is not over yet. Someone coming up. Hello, how you guys doing? Good, thanks. See you later. So that's just Mike and Candace coming home from a weekend away. Mike and Candace are Candace is the general manager at Djuma. So still not seeing any tracks. I do feel like the alarm calls were further into this big block to the north of us. So we're gonna loop around back down then. The general direction of the track wasn't west, it was south. So check, maybe we might be lucky and it's popped out on the way. Oh, I've spotted something else. Not sure what it is just yet. Oh, no, false alarm. It was a leopard-like bush. We get quite a few of those in the Sabi Sands, and they do trick us from time to time. And closely related to the leopard-like bush is the lion-like stump, and there are also many of those. So we're freewheeling with the engine off down the hill, and that gives us a better chance to possibly hear those alarm calls again. So I do think there's somewhere in this general vicinity, or the leopard is. We will try the last second to find him. Just going to listen again quickly. Unfortunately, whatever those Nyalas saw has obviously moved on and beyond them, and they're not alarming again. There's another car coming down the road, so I'm just going to move out of the way. And then, if we have a look at this tree right here, we can see another one of the seeds that I have in my bowl. I'm just going to grab it very quickly. Nice big one. It's called a Combretum calinum, or variable bush willow. Another one of my little decorations at home. They do make wonderful decorations, I think. There we go. I'm going to put it next to the teak. So guys, thanks very much for hanging out with me. It's now time for Fireside Chat, and apparently we've been getting some wonderful questions in, so well done. So we're going to cross across to Scotty, who's probably nice and toasty next to the fire, and I'm going to start shooting in that general direction to join him. So I'll see you in a few minutes, but enjoy your time with Scott while we make